Hello. I'm a couple days late on this one, but anyway, I will talk about January's initiation, the mountain within. This is about Capricorn, Saturn, and other planets, and courage as the power of redemption. Bernard Liebegood once said, for threshold crossings, we need plenty of courage. So courage from both anthroposophical and evolutionary astrological perspectives, it's not simply bravery in the face of danger. It's the soul's conscious participation in destiny. Anthroposophy frames courage as a moral spiritual force that transforms fear into freedom. Evolutionary astrology interprets it as karmic necessity, the soul's chosen crucible for growth and transformation. Rudolf Steiner emphasized that virtues are not abstract ideals, but living forces cultivated through conscious practice. And courage arises when the human individual, confronts fear and acts freely, guided by moral intuition rather than compulsion. In anthroposophy, courage is linked to the development of the higher self. It is the power to stand in truth, even when external forces, social, emotional, or even physical, press against it. Anthroposophy views the human being as a threefold being, body, soul, and spirit. And courage arises in the soul, but it is nourished by the spirit and expressed through the will. Moral courage is the strength to act out of conscience even when it contradicts our outer norms. Spiritual courage is the willingness to face inner trials, confront one's shadow, and walk the path of initiation. Social courage is the ability to stand for truth and justice in community, resisting conformity or fear-based silence. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the transformation of fear into conscious deed. Steiner often described courage as the ability to meet destiny with inner freedom, turning necessity into service. Courage is thus connected to the Christ impulse, or the archetypal force of redemption. Just as love redeems egotism, courage redeems fear, enabling humanity to evolve towards spiritual brotherhood. From an EA perspective, courage is the soul's willingness to face the unavoidable lessons of incarnation. It's the psycho-spiritual strength to confront karmic patterns and evolve through them. Pluto symbolizes the soul's evolutionary intent, and courage is required wherever Pluto demands transformation, often in areas of power, surrender, intimacy, or any death-rebirth cycles. The sun signifies vitality in the core self, while Mars embodies action and assertion. Together, they show how courage manifests in the chart, either through self-expression, confrontation, or endurance. The lunar south node reflects past life comfort zones, while the north node points toward growth. Courage is then the bridge between them, the willingness to leave behind karmic inertia, if you will, and step into evolutionary purpose. Painful or challenging experiences are not accidents, but chosen areas for growth. Courage is the soul's capacity to remember these crucibles, transforming shadow into wisdom. Courage is the moral, spiritual force that transforms fear into freedom, aligning the human eye with higher purpose. Courage is the karmic necessity that propels the soul through its evolutionary journey, confronting shadow and embodying destiny. And so courage is both inner deed and cosmic necessity. It can also be conscious acts of freedom and the soul's chosen path of transformation. So the January theme is a spiritual cornerstone. It is where karmic weight meets soul strength. The cold clarity of Saturn becomes the crucible for transformation. And as earlier said, courage is not merely a heroic impulse. It's a spiritual force essential for the human development. It plays a crucial role in moral evolution. It's necessary for the unfolding of freedom, which is essential to face the challenges of our time. And this applies especially when we face uncertainty, fear, and transformations. So January is merely not the start of a calendar year, it's the soul's descent into the depths of selfhood. In Rudolf Steiner's 12 Virtues, January is marked by courage becoming the power of redemption. Courage is the inner spark of will in anthroposophic terms. It is the threshold virtue. It allows the soul to cross from reactive existence into conscious evolution. It's the activation of the will in service of the higher self. It's not bravado or recklessness, it's the soul's decision to stand upright in the face of fear, doubt, and spiritual trial. It's what's called the Michaelic impulse, the strength to confront our demonic forces, materialism, fear, and cynicism with clarity and resolve. It's the moral backbone of the I, the spiritual self, which must awaken and act freely even when the whole world resists. Redemption in this context is not about salvation from sin. It's about liberation from fragmentation. It's the healing of the soul's wounds, the integration of shadow, and the restoration of wholeness. And through courageous acts, both inner and outer, the soul redeems its karma, transforming past pain into future potential. Redemption is the spiritualizing of suffering, not the erasing of it, but transmuting it into wisdom, compassion, and strength. It's the rebirth of the I, a phoenix rising, from the ashes of fear, shame, and despair. Courage must become the force that leads us to redeem what is damaged in ourselves and the world. It is a path of transformation. In Rudolf Steiner's cosmology, Saturn is not just a planet, it's a spiritual principle. Saturn is the outermost visible planet, representing the boundary between physical and spiritual worlds, symbolizing the threshold of incarnation. It is the principle of limitation and form. It teaches us through the fun experiences of restriction, delay, and hardship. And this process helps the soul develop inner strength and self-discipline. As karmic reckoning, Saturn is often seen as the lord of karma, bringing consequences of past actions into current experience. Saturn is a symbol of memory and maturity. It governs long-term memory and the capacity to think deeply. This makes it essential for spiritual retrospection. It's also crucial for moral development. In anthroposophical terms, Saturn's forces are connected to the old Saturn evolutionary stage. What this means, this was the first planetary condition of Earth. And during this stage, warmth was the primary element. And this links Saturn to the will forces. Saturn connects to the etheric body, especially in its densest form, and it relates to the deepest unconscious workings within the human body and reflexes. This virtue cycle reflects a cosmic law of soul development. Each virtue is a seed, and what it transforms is the fruit. Courage is a seed of redemption. It initiates the inner journey, allowing us to face our biography with honesty. It empowers us to act from conscience, not compulsion. Steiner's view of courage is not bravado, it is moral will, and it's the soul's capacity to act in alignment with truth, even when the world offers no reward. Redemption is not forgiveness. It is transformation. It is the soul's ability to take what was broken and transform it into light. Redemption is the fruit of courage that has endured suffering without losing its moral compass. January's virtue invites us to stand upright in the face of karmic coldness and choose to become the warmth. So Saturn, as the karmic architect and the gatekeeper of karma and time, plays a crucial role, right? It provides the structure of consciousness. It also sets the karmic boundaries we must master. Moreover, it holds the memory of conditioning patterns from past lives and our early life. Saturn is the lord of karma, not as punisher, but as the force that demands integrity. It shows us where we must grow up, take responsibility, and earn our spiritual maturity. Capricorn embodies the archetype of endurance, mastery, and soul sovereignty. This forms the foundation for the climb toward inner authority. It also fuels the transformation of shame into strength. Capricorn teaches that redemption is earned, not through perfection, but through perseverance. In EA, Capricorn evolves from moving from external validation to inner truth, facing karmic guilt and transforming it. This is how we build a life that reflects the soul's deepest values. Capricorn is often symbolized by the mountain goat. The goat climbs toward the summit. It's also symbolized by the imagination of the hermit of the Tarot Major Arcana. In anthroposophical terms, this reflects initiation and effort. The soul must ascend through trials, solitude, and inner work. And this brings earth mastery, as Capricorn is an earth sign. It shows the challenge of spiritualizing matter, bringing higher ideals into grounded, practical form. Saturn governs Capricorn, and in anthroposophy, Saturn is the planet of karma, boundaries, and time. It teaches us through limitation, urging us to develop inner strength and responsibility. This teaches us that redemption is not given, it is grown. January is the soul's test of endurance. And it's an invitation to rise. We need courage, real courage. We need the courage to say that the life of the world must be reestablished on totally new foundations. That was Rudolf Steiner back in 1924. This is all about integration. It's like an alchemy, the alchemy of courage. As we know, the 29th degree of any sign is called the anaretic degree, which is a point of crisis, culmination, or transition. It carries urgency, a sense of, finishing unfinished business before moving into the next sign. This degree of the final sign of the zodiac, Pisces, emphasizes endings, release, and surrender. It's the threshold between dissolution and rebirth. Saturn at the anaretic degree of Pisces highlights tests of faith and boundaries in spiritual and emotional realms, and the need to crystallize lessons of compassion and imagination. It asks us what structures or commitments must dissolve so that new ones can be built in Aries. Neptune in Pisces stands for dreams, illusions, spirituality, and collective unconscious currents in us. And at this final degree, Neptune intensifies themes of disillusionment and mysticism. It also blurs the line between reality and illusion. And this can bring heightened inspiration and confusion. Alternatively, this can lead to escapism. So Saturn's conjunct Neptune at 29 degrees in Pisces. This fuses discipline with dissolution. Saturn defines and concretizes its purpose and dynamics, while Neptune's boundlessness creates intense tension between reality and illusion. Neptune dissolves Saturn's rigid structures, urging spiritual humility and surrender of control. This conjunction manifests as institutional or collective endings. Religious, political, or cultural structures are dissolving. Spiritual accountability rises. Dreams must become grounded, and illusions need confronting. Turning visions into form requires creative, crystallization, but only after releasing outdated frameworks, right, that are beyond their time of relevance. On a collective level, this alignment marks the collapse of old paradigms, religious institutions, ideological frameworks, and systems of belief. They will all fall. And the shift also begins seeding new ones. On a personal level, it can feel like a reckoning with illusions or false hopes. There's a need to integrate spirituality into practical life. It calls for releasing attachments to definitions, even those that have never been held near and dear. These aspects serve our lives before we step into Aries pioneering energy. And this is the last breath before rebirth, we could say. Saturn, the taskmaster, and Neptune, the dreamer, meet as if at the ocean's edge, and they dissolve what no longer serves, whether we've been aware of it or not. The conjunction at Pisces' anaretic degree is both a farewell and a threshold. It urges us to carry onward only what is essential, and we must continue into the unknown fiery dawn of Aries. Saturn in Pisces is in now waning sextile to Uranus and Taurus. Both planets are at anaretic degrees. And this positioning makes the aspect feel like a threshold moment. It carries urgent, transitional energy where endings and beginnings overlap. The anaretic degree is the degree of fate or crisis. It emphasizes culmination, urgency, and the need to resolve unfinished business before entering the next sign. And with both Saturn and Uranus here, we see two archetypal forces. They embody structure and revolution. These forces are poised at the edge of transformation. As we know, Saturn stands for discipline, boundaries, and karmic lessons. In Pisces, it tests faith, compassion, and the ability to bring structure to the intangible. As I mentioned, the final degree, Saturn insists on closing spiritual illusions. It demands the crystallization of wisdom gained through surrender. Uranus symbolizes innovation, disruption, and liberation. In Taurus, it shakes up material security, values, and the physical world. At the anaretic degree, Uranus pushes for radical shifts in how we relate to resources, stability, and embodiment. The sextile is a harmonious aspect. At the waning phase, after the opposition, moving toward the conjunction, carries a tone of integration. It also suggests release. Saturn, in this particular aspect of Uranus, indicates the bridging of endings with innovation. Now, this occurs by dissolving old spiritual or institutional structures, Saturn in Pisces, and at the same time it prepares for new material paradigms, Uranus and Taurus. This creative restructuring grounds visionary ideals into practical innovations. On a collective level, we say that institutions, Saturn, and economies and ecologies, Uranus, are all at a breaking point, yet offer opportunities for renewal. We can only hope. Collectively, this calls for systemic dissolution. There's a need for radical reevaluation, right? Old spiritual, cultural, or economic frameworks give way to new, more liberated forms. We may feel that the need to release outdated beliefs and to, embrace new values. This happens as we face tensions, the tensions between security and freedom. This urges balance and a call to integrate spiritual maturity with practical innovation. This aspect is like the elder, Saturn, meeting the rebel, Uranus. They meet at the edge of the ocean and the fertile earth. And the elder says, finish your karmic lessons with dignity. And the other whispers, prepare to break ground for something radically new. So together they form a bridge between dissolution and rebirth, urging us to carry on only what is essential. Now this simple statement is fraught with, angst, worries, and tensions. It feels like the hermit of the tarot stepping ahead like the fool, and the fool steps on the tower and is being struck by lightning. So January 14th through the 21st, Mars and Venus is in waning sextile aspect to Saturn, and focusing on how Venus's anaretic degree of Capricorn emphasizes relationships, it also emphasizes values and creativity under pressure. It's about completing karmic lessons around values, responsibility, ambition, and integrity in love and art, for example. And there's a feeling of urgency. We must resolve these certain issues before Venus enters Aquarius. And this transition will bring an impulse for rethinking and creativity. Mars adds drive, passion, and assertiveness. Venus and Mars are together, and a few days later, right at 29 degrees Capricorn, fusing love and desire with ambition and discipline. And this conjunction suggests relationships and creative projects to be charged with intensity, but also a need for maturity and closure. Venus conjunct Mars are in waning sextile to Saturn, and this waning sextile is all about integration and release. Saturn in Pisces provides a spiritual dissolving influence. The Venus-Mars energy must be tempered, calling us to walk our talk with humility, compassion, and spiritual accountability. This aspect supports constructive closure with the opportunity to turn ambition into wisdom and grounding passion into service. This is happening as Saturn is in a waning sextile to the Sun. A waxing sextile is about growth and opportunity. The Sun, one's identity, vitality, and purpose, harmonizes with Saturnian eye-making, discipline, and structure. It calls for personal growth through responsibility. And we're called to achieve spiritual maturity with this alignment. This stabilizes the chart. Even as Venus and Mars are urgent and fiery, the Saturn-Sun combination provides a steady rhythm of integration. And to make things even more interesting, on the 17th, anaretic Venus opposes Pluto at the 4th degree of Aquarius. Pluto showing power, transformation, and deep unconscious forces. And this opposition indicates confrontations between old values, Capricorn, and the new paradigm, Aquarius. These confrontations occur in both individuals and collectively. The focus is on the need to release and allow, release control, I should say, and allow transformations in love, art, and values. And 3 days after that, Sun enters into Aquarius, calling us to make this our purpose and reason for being. So collectively, this will mark a turning point in how societies balance ambition, relationships, and power structures. Can you imagine? We can see this evolving before us. Old hierarchies, Capricorn, are giving way to collective innovation, Aquarius. And as we know, individual and collective powers will resist change. They will fight tooth and nail to keep control and identity. On a personal level, we experience a relationship or creative project reaching a climax, demanding transformation. And this is a call to balance ambition with compassion, to confront and learn to release control and embrace renewal. We're also dealing with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, occurring from the middle of December to the middle of January. And during this time, it is in a waxing trine aspect to Saturn and Pisces. Jupiter brings expansion, wisdom, faith, and abundance, while in Cancer, Jupiter nurtures growth through emotional intelligence and family. It supports roots and belonging on a social level. Jupiter also enriches one's own personal identity. It emphasizes protection, care, and the cultivation of inner security. Retrograde motion turns Jupiter's expansive energy inward. Instead of outward growth, it calls for reflection and integration, encouraging revisiting past lessons about nurturing home and emotional truth. Saturn stands for discipline, structure, and karmic lessons. While in Pisces, Saturn tests boundaries in the spiritual and emotional realms. It asks for maturity and compassion, discernment of dreams, and responsibility and surrender. So Saturn is now about bringing form to the formless, turning spiritual ideals into grounded practice. A waxing trine occurs as planets move toward opposition, symbolizing growth, opportunity, and constructive development. Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces are both in water signs, creating a flow of emotional and spiritual wisdom. Most positively, this trine suggests the need for emotional maturity when nurturing, Cancer, meets spiritual responsibility, Pisces. It emphasizes the integration of inner and outer growth. Jupiter's reflective expansion harmonizes with Saturn's compassionate discipline. So opportunities for healing and service when wisdom gained through reflection, Jupiter retrograde, can be structured into compassionate action, Saturn. Collectively, this aspect supports movements toward compassionate institutions, healing practices, and nurturing communities. It's about building structures that honor emotional and spiritual needs. These seem like distant lights amid the pervasive darkness in the world. On a personal level, it feels like a call to revisit past emotional lessons, and it's a chance to integrate them into current responsibilities, opportunities, and ideals. This can offer a chance to stabilize spiritual growth with practical discipline. Now, we must remember that true expansion comes through emotional integrity and compassionate boundaries. At the anaretic degree, courage is not about charging ahead blindly. It's about standing at the edge of endings and beginnings. And it involves the holding the tension of dissolution and rebirth. So to recap a little bit, with Saturn conjunct Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces, courage means facing illusions without denial. It's bravery and surrender, dissolving rigid control and trusting the unseen currents. Saturn sextile Uranus at 29 degrees Pisces and Taurus shows courage as the willingness to innovate while letting go. It's a strength to release outdated structures and embrace radical new values even when security feels threatened. How much fun can we have with that? So Venus conjunct Mars at 29 degrees, Capricorn, opposite Pluto in Aquarius, shows relational and creative courage. He calls us to dare to love and create authentically. And we must confront power dynamics and collective transformation. It's the bravery of intimacy and vulnerability at the edge of change. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, trining Saturn in Pisces, shows that courage is reflective. First turn inward to nurture wisdom, then carry it outward with responsibility. It's the quiet bravery of emotional maturity and compassionate discipline. Saturn and Neptune reminds us that courage is not always action. It can be the humility to let go. Saturn Uranus shows that courage is breaking ground even when the ground of old values seems unstable. Venus, Mars, Pluto reveals that courage is vulnerability, risking intimacy, art and beauty in the face of transformation. Jupiter, Saturn teaches that courage is tending the inner hearth, nurturing wisdom before stepping into collective service. Collectively, these aspects suggest courage is needed, right, to face the collapsing institutions, shifting values, and birth of new paradigms. All that seems so unstable these days. On a personal level, courage is the thread that helps us carry our legacy, Capricorn, into innovation, Aquarius, and allows us to dissolve old forms, Pisces, so we can nurture new ones, Cancer, Taurus. Saturn ingresses into Aries on February 14th, 2026. Now, courage that has been called for now establishes a foundation for meditation. I'll speak about that later. And this involves meditating on one's intentions. It also includes capabilities fueled by courage. I will end this with Rudolf Steiner's verse for our time, the time that we live in. We must eradicate from the soul all fear and terror of what comes out of the future. We must acquire serenity in all feelings and sensations about the future. We must look forward with absolute equanimity to everything that may come, and we must think only that whatever comes is given to us by a world directive full of wisdom. It is part of what we must learn in this age, namely to live out of pure trust, without any security in existence, trusting the ever-present help of the spiritual world. Truly, nothing else will do if our courage is not to fail us. I thank everyone. Please like this posting and leave comments below. Visit midnightpoint.com/themountainwithin for more information and activities that support this theme. Thank you and goodbye.